What if I told you one of the most influential clothing brands in the world barely advertises, doesn't care if you understand it, charges over 2,000 for a t-shirt, and somehow became one of the most respected brands in fashion? That brand is Enfants Riches Déprimés. And no, people aren't buying it because it's expensive, they're buying it because it represents an identity. Today we're breaking down one of the greatest examples of brand positioning ever created, and by the end of the video you'll understand exactly why ERD became a cult brand, and how you can sell a strategy without copying the clothes. Okay, what is ERD? If you've never heard of Enfants Riches Déprimés, or ERD for short, it's actually part of the point. It wasn't designed for everyone. Founded by Henry Alexander Levy, the brand mixes punk culture, luxury fashion, vintage Americana, underground music, literature, and fine art into one complete world. Instead of trying to appeal to millions of ERD almost pushes people away. The graphics feel uncomfortable, the prices feel ridiculous, the photography feels dark, the branding almost feels anti-fashion. Yet you see a bunch of celebrities, musicians, collectors, and fashion enthusiasts obsess over it. Why? Because ERD isn't selling clothing, they're selling membership into a worldview. This is where most clothing brands fail. They think that branding is a cool logo, good mock-ups, nice photos, good blinks. None of these things make people feel emotionally attached. Enfants Riches Déprimés understands something way more important. People don't buy products, people buy identities. When someone airs Enfants Riches Déprimés, they're communicating something before they ever speak. They're saying, I understand art, I appreciate craftsmanship, and I don't need everyone to notice something. None of those reasons involve the actual shirt. The clothing simply becomes a uniform for that identity. That's why you can charge luxury prices for it. That's why they're really not competing with any other t-shirts. Basically, if you're another brand, you're basically competing with the emotional value attached to part of the world. Another thing that everyone needs to be copying is they created a world. One thing I always tell clothing brands is stop thinking about making products and start thinking about building a world up. Chrome Hearts built a rock star world. Ralph Lauren built the American dream. Leon Dior built nostalgic New York. And ERD built a whole world where luxury, punk, literature, and emotional chaos all exist together. Everything they release fits the universe, the garments, the photography, the models, the runway shows, the store, the music, the books, and the way they speak online. Nothing feels random. Every detail reinforces the same story. And when your audience sees content they really know, it can only come from your brand. That's branding. Also, putting your brand everywhere. And then part 4, right? Why do most brands fail? Here's what usually happens. You or someone you know ends up starting a clothing brand, make one like racing type shirt, an anime t-shirt, then they drop camo, then they drop Y2K, then they drop old money, then they drop football jerseys, then they drop workwear, and then they wonder why nobody cares about the brand. And that's because no one has idea what your brand is or what it stands for. Enfants Riches Déprimés would never do that. Every collection feels like another chapter of the same story. That's what creates trust. Not consistency in posting, but consistency in meaning. People should know what your brand believes before they know what your brand sells. All right, let's talk about how we as brand owners can apply this to our brand. Okay, here's what I'd steal from Enfants Riches Déprimés. Here's what I'm going to be taking, or what I learned from it. Number 1 is creative philosophy products. Ask, right, what does my customer believe? What music they listen to? Where do they hang out? What movies inspire them? What frustrates them? What are they chasing? Number 2, build one world and not just 10 aesthetics. One world that every product belongs inside. 3, let people discover the brand. Don't explain everything. Let mystery, people also feel like they found something before it blows up. Like, oh, this is so niche, right? That's one of Enfants Riches Déprimés' biggest strength, right? The biggest lessons has nothing to do with expensive clothing. It has everything to do with conviction. Most brands chase trends. Instead, Enfants Riches Déprimés created an entire universe. That's why people don't buy the products. They'll buy into the store. Now, if you're building a clothing brand, stop asking, what should my next design be? And start asking, what am I inviting people? Because the brands that win over the next decade will not have the coolest graphics. They will have the strongest identity. If you enjoyed this episode of the Brand Playbook series, subscribe, because next time we're breaking down another brand that's mastered branding, showing you exactly how you can apply those lessons to your own clothing brand. Boy, Hockey.